Hey everyone, it's Ben. We're back with the Renegade Lawyer podcast, where each episode I get to interview people inside or outside of legal who are making a ding in the world. And today we're going to go one space adjacent, really to my other favorite space, or maybe my primary favorite space, which is the refereeing world, the soccer world, the sportsmanship world. And so I'm going to talk to David Gerson. David is kind of interesting because he also has a marketing and public speaking background. David and I like to do the two weirdest things in the world that most human beings hate, which one, getting on stage and speaking. The other is, getting in front of a crowd and trying to referee a game. He has become slightly famous, if not big time famous, for his referees Refs Need Love 2 brand with over 250,000 followers on TikTok and Instagram. He's actually started a small business associated with that. Most importantly, he's one of the sane adults out there who we are just trying to help create a safe, fun environment for our children to grow up in as good citizens. And so using some of our public speaking, whatever persona skills, to just kind of spread this message. So David, it's great. It's a Friday afternoon here. I know you're busy because I think you just started a new work gig. I think I saw on the internet, and you're refereeing down in Georgia. So thanks for carving out some time for us.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. I mean, I think we are definitely like-minded individuals. But I will say in general, man, referees, wherever they are around the world, and I've interacted through my channel with referees in Nepal and in Ukraine. Even they're still playing some football in Ukraine these days, in South Africa and everywhere. But it is a community. I hate to use the word fraternity because that seems almost exclusive. We'll take anyone. But it seems to attract certain people who have kind of a core beliefs, honor, honesty, fairness. It's a wonderful group of people. So I'm so glad we're getting a chance to connect and meet.
It is hard sometimes. Someone says, well, why do you do this? And to explain, I like doing stuff I'm good at. I think every game for me, I just turned 67. So every game for me is a physical and psychological challenge. It's a book. You don't know what chapter is coming next. And we're trying to manage, especially at this high school game, which is where most of my work is today, just manage these personalities. I don't know about you, David, but I find the high school athlete, I think, is awesome. I think most of the coaches are great. I think the parents are the problem. And it's just fun. So looks like you started about 10 years ago into the refereeing space. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, why? Why did you start?
Well, I would just say I've always been a glutton for punishment. My high school yearbook quote, and this is true, I'm not making this up, is it's better to stand alone for the right reasons than be together for the wrong. So that is just kind of a core belief in who I am. I've always just kind of been like, hey, I'm if I believe it, I'm going to say it. And so I've always been in like student government positions coming up. Even in college, I was a rugby player. And I was, president of my rugby team, which talk about a difficult job. That's a group of mutants right there. If you can keep everyone out of prison, you're doing a good job. And that was actually my first step into officiating, actually. So I played all 8 semesters of college. In my final year, I was starting to get a little burnt out, picked up so many injuries. I actually took the course to become a nationally certified rugby referee. And that's where I started officiating some matches in that, final senior year of college, and then I continued officiating rugby. So that was my first taste of being an official. And rugby has a very different culture around how you work with an official, and the players is much more mutual respect. You talk to each other, with empathy. It's done in a calm tone of voice. You speak only to the captain. It's just a very different thing. And so when I had an opportunity, again, when my kids were starting to age to the point where I couldn't coach them in sports anymore, my son was moving into those like a U10, U11, U12 academies and going up pretty high. He wanted to become a referee. And I was like, man, well, if I'm going to be driving him to the fields, I might as well get certified too. And so that's how we started when he was 10 and I was 40. And now I'm 50 and he's 20 in college. But we refed over easily 500 or 600 matches together over the years. But that's how I got started to where I am today.
Is he still in it?
He is. Now, he took a little hiatus.
Yeah.
So when he was 17 and we had been reffing together for 7 years, we started moving up and doing higher and higher levels of competition. So the MLS Next, the ECNL, he even centered an ECNL. Like when he was 15, he stepped into the middle for a U13 ECNL, which for those who are not listening out there, it's kind of like the highest level of youth academy, professionalized, I mean, real high level of competition. I mean, that is a difficult spot to be when you are only a year or two older than the kids that you're officiating out there. I mean, that's the kind of man he is. He was an old soul. But we had a really negative experience, actually. We were officiating an adult amateur match, and I was an assistant on one side of the field, he was on the other side of the field, and a red card was given out, which is the most serious, punishment you can give someone. They're sent off for the match when they receive a red card. And the player who received the red card, there was kind of a mass confrontation, people coming together on the pitch. Well, out of this mass confrontation, this player, this 25-year-old man, this large man, takes a run at my 120-pound, 5'9", 17-year-old child on the other side of this mass
The other side of
confrontation.
the field, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw this happening, and so I run across the field. This guy kind of bumps my son in the chest, screaming at him, about to physically assault him. And I was able to get them apart, and obviously father, Papa Bear brain comes out and got them away. But I will just say that was one incident of a couple incidents that we were just getting involved in as we were doing these higher and higher level men's matches. And he was just like, man, I don't need this. Like, it's ridiculous, dude. I can get another job. He worked on a pizza truck. He was getting paid like $200, $300 a night working on this thing, getting tips. No one's yelling at me. Everyone's nice. I'm having a good time. He's like, why do I need to step over here and referee? And so he took about a year and a half away. And then when he came home from college over the summer, poor college kid, he'd gotten past it. And, he's like, yeah, I'd love to try it again. And we had a blast. We got back out there. We were back in more youth academy matches. It was a safer environment. I only took him to places where I knew he would be treated well. And he loves it again. And now can't wait to ref with me every time that he's home. But so 10 years for him too. And he still loves doing it. And he's still certified. And he's reffing now in South Carolina. He goes to Clemson. But we did have a year where we had to go away because he was the victim of some very serious verbal abuse and then potentially, it was borderline assault.
I have a sort of a similar experience I started when I was 16, so 51 years ago. And at a relatively young age, I was working in some of the top senior amateur adult leagues in the Washington, D.C. area. And back then, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have a lot of support for referees. There weren't, you'd have the occasional meeting where they handed out the paychecks. That's how long it was. They handed out paychecks. And it was really hard, when you would have games. I didn't have an incident exactly like that, but you have hard games where sometimes all hell breaks loose. And, for us, my dad would drive me down to Washington, D.C. We'd find a place to park, and we're doing the senior amateur ethnic leagues on crappy, people can't imagine, like rock, hardly any grass fields where every foul results in a lot of pain and suffering if you're hitting the ground. And stop for a bit. I think the great thing for referees today is no matter where you are. So we have referees in our high school association, David, who are up to 83 years old. We have 18 to 83. There is a place for everybody today because there's so many, as you said, so many different levels of game, of intensity, of field sizes, even. And so I think, your challenge and my challenge, probably the biggest one today, is keeping a youngin' who started out as a teenager, getting them past like year 2 or year 3. And so, thank you for doing a lot of that work. I've seen your videos, some of them out there, in coaching. It's interesting, this whole rugby thing, because you can go on YouTube and you can see the mic'd up rugby videos, and it is exactly as you described. And I wonder, like, well, how come? Like, could we ever effect change to get to there? And how come, like in Virginia, like the Virginia High School League will tell you, although we've had some bad basketball incidents and a track meet incident in Virginia, which you may have seen on social media, but VHSLs, like soccer, it's the hardest thing, like for us, so many ejections and stuff. What do you think it would, can we change the culture? And what do you think it would take?
Yes. So the short answer is yes, it absolutely can happen. Okay. First off, it exists. So we're not talking about some type of like crazy, new type of nuclear fusion, in a paper bag. We're talking about, a behavior change and a mindset shift, and then policies, and then administrators who will support those policies when they need to be implemented. It's not crazy talk. We're not talking about something that's impossible here. We're talking about collectively coming together and agreeing on what is acceptable and what is not. Now, I will tell you, I've just spent, the last 4 months of my life working on the brand new referee abuse policies for U.S. soccer, where we are very clearly starting to lay out in video, on websites, in imagery, in PowerPoints, exactly what is acceptable in terms of, an emotional outburst. We recognize it's a game of passion. When you're competitive in anything, whether you're playing tennis or whether you're playing basketball or hockey or soccer, when you're competing and you're giving it all, yes, sometimes you get frustrated when a call doesn't go your way. Totally. We appreciate that. It's an emotional outburst, right? It's atmosphere. Fans, they cheer, oh, they groan. But when it becomes, what we call dissent, or we call often a boss offensive, insulting, and abusive language, there's no place for that. There's no place for, personally abusing, using insulting language, racist language, towards a referee. There's no place for physically threatening someone's safety. Okay. There's no place for, touching someone, unwanted touching or throwing things at someone. There's no place for that. Okay. It's not okay, especially when we're dealing with amateur and youth sporting events. No one can tell me that is, oh no, that's part of the game. No, it's not. I've read the laws of the game. Trust me, 99% of people haven't. And it's not in there. It doesn't say you can abuse the official. You can threaten the official. You can dox the official. You can hit the official, whatever that is. It's not in it. You don't need it to play the game. It doesn't make the game better.
I'm just trying to protect my players, Ref.
Oh, yeah. What do you mean? I'm just trying to, I've heard it all. I'm just trying to protect the players. I'm trying to keep the ref honest, all that. Like, please, man. No, you're not helping anyone. You're certainly not helping the game, right? Because all you're doing is amping up the toxicity and, the negative sentiment, and you create a victim mentality, right? Because now the players on the field aren't responsible for winning or losing. It's the ref. The ref's making a call that's forcing us to win or lose. Let me tell you, I've watched many, many, many thousands of sporting events. Rarely is it the referee who's causing someone to lose a match. I mean, yeah, there might be one call here or there that's subjective and could have gone another way, but usually it's the team on the field who decide the outcome. Yeah. So in you're just summarizing this. Yes, Ben, it is possible. We can change the culture of youth sports in this country. We can.
I'm curious about your work with the abuse policy. Is your work for the national level or for Georgia, or because I've looked at it, there's not been a lot in Virginia besides showing the one or two graphics of the policy. I have friends who are on disciplinary committees, and I'm just wondering, if this is going to be have disciplinary hearings, will have to quintuple, right? If the the sanction, the minimum sanction is a suspension for 2 games for abuse. So I'm just curious about how you think that's going to play out at the local level in terms of how do we educate the referees? How are we going to report? Because I just haven't seen anything about the practical side of the posters I've seen.
That's a great question. So I worked on the videos, the posters, the PowerPoints, the script for the videos and everything that went into those PowerPoints. U.S. Soccer, so the national U.S. Soccer, Carrie Seitz, our VP of referees, and Brian Hall at U.S. Soccer championed this effort, got the funding for this effort to hire me and an agency to create all these materials so everyone could be sensitized and learn about it and see all this stuff. So that's happening at a U.S. Soccer level.
That's cool.
And they are developing a universal kind of national level reporting structure and database, so that there's a uniform way to submit these supplemental reports to report abuse. Right now, it all falls to the local state level, state referee committees and associations to define what that process is. But it is going to be a national structure and a uniform way for every referee who's working U.S. soccer sanctioned matches in this country to have kind of one process to be able to report, so we can track these things and make sure that the punishments are being given out as they are written. And as you said, they are significant. Now, one thing I do want to say, Ben, because you said you do a lot of high school, this does not qualify for high school matches or for college matches. As you know, they have a different rule book entirely and a whole different structure. This is specifically anything for US youth soccer, US club soccer, MLS Next, ECNL, ADP, all these different alphabet soup, AYSO leagues underneath the US soccer umbrella, which we're talking about millions of kids who are in US soccer, certified programs. The other thing is they only can sanction the people that they license. So they can sanction team officials like coaches, right? And they can sanction players. They can't sanction parents. So parents are the responsibility of the club. So there are some limitations to what this policy can do, but it is significant. And as you said, the minimum punishment for someone who gets sent off for referee abuse, whether it's verbal abuse, taunting, using, belittling language, and and yelling at a referee in an aggressive manner, the minimum is 2 games. And if that person is a minor, it is tripled. So if you are yelling at a minor referee, okay, not just normal dissent, asking question over and over again on every call, but specifically, you're the worst ref I've ever seen. Okay, well, that's a red card, and that is a minimum of 2 games. If that person is a minor, it is a minimum of 6 games. 6 games. So this has teeth. I mean, start moving up these policies, you use racist language, which, let me tell you, I see it happen all the time, or ethnic slurs or anything like that, or gendered language as specifically insulting someone, for their gender or some nature. And a lot of women have to deal with this out there. I mean, we're talking 6 months. And if it's a minor, even beyond that. So it can be real severe.
Have the clubs, the non-referee personnel, been involved in this? And then what has been their, I'm sure everyone probably raised their hand and says, yes, we agree, we have to fix this, right? I'm just curious, with the sanctions being significant, to say the least, I'm curious about what the clubs are saying. And I don't guess we have enough evidence of what they're doing yet, but what they're saying about this policy.
Well, so it's interesting. I mean, they were all very involved in the creation of the policy. So there was or I should say the update to the policy. Because there's always been a policy, but no one knew about it because it didn't have the website and the videos and the pictures and the PowerPoints and all this kind of stuff. So over the last year, they've been updating the policy and they've been communicating it. And they've had all of these different focus groups and webinars and calls. And I sat in a couple of these too. So everyone has been, where it's coming. Now the rubber meets the road. And I think there will be some of the trepidation is, okay, well, now I'm going to have, I love this one. They're like, oh, I'm going to have a referee on a power trip and he's just going to throw me out and throw me a red card just because he wants to. I'm like, listen, dude, that's not what happens. Like, no one wants to show a red card and then have to write a report and potentially go to a hearing or something like that. Please. I'll also say too, a lot of clubs are in denial. Okay, in denial that it's not us. I will tell you, and I'm not going to be specific about anything here, but I just recently had an incident where a young teenage referee was being yelled at aggressively by a male, in his 20s coach, and came onto the pitch yelling at this teenage referee and engaged some other not good behavior. And I'll tell you, the response from the club is, it's an isolated incident. It was a bad day. It's like, man,
there's a culture.
I don't know, man. I think you need to go back and look at some of the full game footage or multiple games. I think this is going to really force clubs to start taking a very close look at who they have on their staff and how they act. Because, I mean, it's a massive impact. If you lose a coach for 2-3 months, whatnot, and they're coaching 3 teams,
exactly,
what do you do?
Exactly right. They're coaching several teams. So I think so as a referee who's been watching, but frankly in Virginia only seen like two posters
Hmm.
and several social media posts.
Right.
What you just said about the work that has gone into this,
Hmm.
I think is going to be an important thing to be communicated to the soccer community. This wasn't five guys and gals in a room
No.
saying, all right, we're tired of this now. Let's just put up on a whiteboard like what penalties should be.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be important. I'm curious if sanctions are increased for dealing with a minor referee. You know, in some countries, some of the kiddos under 18 are wearing special
Hmm.
armbands and
Hmm.
stuff. You know, as a lawyer, you're thinking like due process. Like, is there anything like that
Hmm.
there so that you actually know that it's a 17-year-old who's on the field?
Yeah, they're working on that. They actually are
Cool.
coming
That's
out with
neat.
a different color badge, I think is what they're working on. So there'll actually be a badge with a green outline to it that you, when you see that, you'll know that is a
That's
minor
wonderful.
referee. Now, I'll tell you, it's funny. I've talked to some minor referees about that, or some people who are like, 17, 16, they're kind of older teens and like, I don't know if I want to be, people to know that I'm a minor. I was like, no, it's important. It's important for those, especially those kids who are 13, 14, 15 years old. Man, it's their first job. Gosh, when I was 13, you think about, I don't know. I mean, yes, Ben, I'm sure you and I were kind of similar. Yes, I was a confident teen and I liked talking, but man, you put a 13-year-old kid in an environment, these highly charged environments. And yes, I'm talking about U6 and U8 soccer, highly charged environment. I mean, U10, I tell people the hardest age groups to
Yeah,
referee is like over 35 men, okay? And then U10. Like,
exactly.
seriously,
Both of those are exactly right.
it is the most difficult, crazy environments. The fields are smaller. There's so much more intensity in those U10s. Kids are finally starting to be physical with each other. Some people fall down. Some people may get injured. I mean, no fault of anyone's, whatnot, but it is intense. And people think their kid is the next Messi or Ronaldo, whatever. Oh my gosh. And they're spending money. There's a lot of money. Kids are practicing 4 days a week. That is a very difficult environment to put a 13, 14-year-old kid. But we've got over 20 million people playing soccer in the United States every single week. There are thousands upon thousands of games happening. You need these kids to be able to work those matches to cover them so they can play. But man, the intensity. Oh, yes, they do need safety. They do need to be protected. We do need to know that that is a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid. It is just like anyone else's kid that we see on the pitch. I don't know why it is, Ben, that if it's a child playing the game,
Right.
then you would never want someone yelling at that kid, screaming at that kid, right? Oh, that was a
You're the
horrible
worst.
pass. You're
You're
the
the worst
worst
bully
player
ever.
ever, right? Totally. That would be completely unacceptable. Fights would break out in a second. But if that kid is wearing a referee jersey, then they're fair game. Then you could yell whatever insults you want at them. You could threaten them. You could tell them that the worst referee ever. People have no problem with that. And they're like, well, they got to learn. They should develop a thick skin. Are you kidding me?
Or no, they got to be trained better. There has to be
Oh,
some level of accountability. Who's like, how do we get like this is a championship U10 game? Like, how come we got some referee that's only been it's in her first year of refereeing? And I'm like, well, they sent all the good referees to the good teams
but
today, but you know, this is what you get.
Well, it's a
Um,
self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So we lose
yeah,
I think we lose 80% of refs within 3 years. So, and the number one reason why they leave that they've said is specifically spectator abuse, and the number two reason why they leave is coach abuse. And so what you have is you're burning through all of these young referees, and you and I both know it takes 3 or 4 years before you properly learn how to apply the game and you learn game
yes,
management skills, you get that confidence. So if you're having this outrageously high churn rate, well, guess what? The quality just keeps on going down. And in, I think it was 2019, we had about 140,000 soccer referees certified in this country to do grassroots soccer. Now we've got, about 95,000. So, we've lost 30, 40%. We're still burning out referees at an alarming rate. So, yeah, policies like this are needed, so that we can get better quality officiating. It's not about a punishment for coaches or players or spectators. It is about creating a better positive environment for everyone.
you know, one of the things that irks me, and I think we can improve on, is the adult referee who does not recognize dissent
Mm.
and abuse, and who says, I'm good, like I can take this. Or actually, and they have maybe teenage assistant referees on the touchline, and the adult referee is not like present enough to listen to what's going on the touchline and dealing with it as soon as it happens. And that's like, I see this over and over, and I'm like, no, like we're really good at trying to recognize fouls and figure out what the next step is. We, the adult referees, need to be better at recognizing abuse,
Yeah.
whether it's to us or certainly to our teenage assistant, and dealing with it. Because next week there is going to be a 16-year-old on that game, and we're setting that 16-year-old up for failure.
Yeah, no, I could not agree more. You hear this line about, you just, develop a thick skin. Don't listen to them. Tune them out. Like, I'm sorry. There is no mammal on Earth that does not, that has, ear lids or whatever. The ears are open. It's like you're constantly listening to hear what might be around you. It's an early warning system. You can't shut off your ears. And I've been to tournaments, right? Like high level tournaments where they don't want to deal with it. And they just say, keep your eyes open, keep your ears shut. Like, I'm sorry. That's not okay. That is not okay. And especially if we're dealing with and working with teenagers. I will tell you a true story. This is the last adult recreational match I ever worked. I had a 15-year-old young black woman as my assistant referee. Okay. And it's 5 minutes into the match. And a player, she raised her flag properly for an offside offense because someone came from an offside position to play a ball. And again, people on the field might not have seen it, but she was in the right position. She noticed it. I saw it happening as well. And a large, Caucasian guy, big muscular dude, takes a run at this girl, like takes steps towards her. What? Are you kidding me? What? Like unbelievable. Like, that is not okay, man. Like, that is aggressive intimidation. That is traumatizing. It is unacceptable. And I was like just mortified. And I'm like, what? Like, no way. Back up. Are you kidding? I called the captain over it. That is unacceptable. I was so upset. And I was mortified. And you know what? The players were like, what? Like, what's your problem? Like, I had a problem. Like, it was my fault. So yes, Ben, when I'm out there, I'm paying it forward. And I am making sure that when I hear verbal abuse, and I hear dissent, even if it doesn't rise to that level of verbal abuse yet, but we've got someone who's, yelling, rude things to my assistant referee, whether it's a teenager or not, it's not okay.
100%.
And it is just not okay. That is not in the rule book of youth sports, that just because you've come to watch your kid ref, that you've got the, carte blanche to yell rude, nasty, insulting things at the referees. It is not okay.
Yeah, my words are like that's not your role here today, and we're not doing that here today. And I find, David, like most of the time that works, and maybe it's because I've been around and I've got a whole bag full of techniques to talk to adults. I was watching a game once, and it was a youth game, and the 16-year-old center back kept turning to the AR and would say, like, "You suck, you suck," loud. And I was just a spectator, and when the game ended, I started to walk along with the AR. I said, "Why didn't you tell the referee, the adult referee?" He said, "Well, the referee said to ignore it." I'm like, man, that is just criminal.
Listen, man, we've all been there. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I didn't know how to deal with dissent early in my refereeing career. I mean, that's why I say it takes 3, 4, 5 years, first off, to be able to understand what is acceptable and what's not. And then when you do find something that's what's not, how do you deal with it? I mean, my son was lucky, right? Like, he's a 12-year-old kid centering a U10 or a U13. He was like 13, 14 doing a U12 match, and he had me on the line. And so when I was experiencing, a coach giving him, unacceptable behavior, at halftime, I was like, "Hey, Jacob, I think it's time. We need to have a conversation with the coach. If it continues, you need to card him." And so I was able to be that mentor for him. So many of our teenage referees do not have that. They're out there with other teenagers. They never get that kind of coaching, whatnot, someone who's going to support them and be with them through the match, because it is so difficult to do. I mean, I remember lashing out and yelling at spectators. There was one specific time where I heard someone scream, "That's a horrible call." And I turned around in the middle of the field. I'm like, "Who said that?" Like yelling, like that's not right either. So it takes time to figure that out. And I'm a grown ass adult, right? Who's had, 27, 28 years in the corporate world and training in public speaking. Gosh, not many people have that. And even I struggled with it. So one of the things we're working on right now for US Soccer is specifically some videos that will help referees identify, what's just atmosphere, what's an emotional outburst, what is dissent, what is offensive, abusive language, and then what do you do about it? What can you do with your body language, your voice, your mechanics? How do you go about it if you do need to show someone a card? If you do need to send one off, what does that look like? How much distance do you need? All of those types of things so that people know to recognize it and then what action to take. Because no, they do not need to accept it. They don't need to deal with it. That is unacceptable.
It is just so hard as a young. So when I started, like I was in Northern Virginia, most of the coaches, so this is the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Most of the coaches were foreign born males, right? And you got little redhead American boy Ben out there. And I learned quickly that being the most knowledgeable on the field about the laws of the game was really important because that was really good for self-confidence. But nobody else, like if Joe the coach, born and allegedly playing professional ball someplace, said something, then Joe was right. And I just think that's so hard for young referees. So let me ask you this, because I still like to go and I love doing games. I need more recovery days, and there's nothing harder than coming out of winter to try to run with 17-year-olds at the high school level. But on narrow fields. But I find it challenging because I think I would be a good mentor, right? But I think if I have an hour, I want to go do a game. I don't want to go watch. So how do you do this? How do you combine? Because I know obviously you've got your job.
Right.
I didn't know that you were kind of the production leader of the broadcast and implementation of the abuse policy. That's really cool, and I think there's more to be done there. Like that's neat. I had no idea about some of this background, but I'm curious about you. Like, how do you mentally split up your time today? Because I'm sure you still like refereeing and getting out there with refereeing, mentoring, coaching referees, doing clinics probably, and living life.
Yeah. So prioritization. So obviously, if my family is available for a meal, that's taking priority. If, kids are going to be home for something, I'm going to make time to be with them. I just went for a walk with my daughter and my younger son just an hour ago. That's number one. So making sure that my family's emotional health and physical health and my physical health and emotional health, number one. Every day I'm working out first thing in the morning, waking up at 5 or 5:30, and I've got some workout that I'm doing, whether I'm doing a HIIT workout, whether I'm doing a distance workout, a heavy lift, that's the first thing that I do. The second thing, I need to provide for my family. So I've got, my full-time job. So I run sales and marketing for this really cool little live event activation company that does like on-site silk screening of shirts, screen printing of shirts, and leather stamping and hat bars. And that's a lot of fun. I love them. They're really cool. I was a huge fan of them when I was in the corporate world. I used to be a big corporate branding, guy for billion-dollar companies, and I just got burnt out on corporate life. So I worked for this really small little company that I love and enjoy. And then outside of that, I've got my passions, right? So I've got my passion project around Refs Need Love Too. So I generate at least 1 or 2 videos every single day to help educate everyone who's involved in the beautiful game, whether they are coaches, whether they are players, whether they are referees. That's a part of my day. And then I've got, podcasts as well, and the website and a retail business that has built up, selling, kit and gear to referees and materials and cards and whistles and socks. And you've gotten that as well. But I try and keep, focused on my priorities. If I feel like everything's getting away from me, and I felt that a little bit last week, I just start writing my list again. I start writing down, okay, what's most important? Where do I want to be 3 to 5 years from now? What are the things that are going to get me there? first and foremost. And that's what I just, work on trying to do. I try not to let it overwhelm me. I will tell you, as a referee, I want to be about 75% on the field right now. So high school is great because you could do it during the week, which is wonderful. Monday nights, Wednesday nights, Friday nights. And then my weekends are often reserved for club. And then I try and take one weekend of the month where I'm doing mentor work, where I'm doing either a first time referee class, or I've been invited to possibly go watch referees and mentor referees actually on the field. So just like you, while I'm able to and
Yeah.
physically able to get out there, I want to be reffing as much as I can. But I feel that at this stage of my life, at 50 years old, knowing that I'm never going to be, a national referee or something like that, I'm not going pro, that the most important thing I can do is give back to the next generation.
Yeah, no, that's a really good balance. How big is your team at Refs Need Love too? Like, I,
Team,
I think your
dude.
videos have upgraded,
Oh,
beyond
that's so
some of
funny, brother. No, no, no. It is me, myself, and I. Every now and then I have to drag my family member in to come video for me. My son's girlfriend's a great videographer, and I'll take her out because I've been doing more brand deals lately. I had a Moss by Messi sports drink, and I've got another one I just started working on this week for a big national brand. So sometimes I need someone to help take my iPhone and help me video. But I am the video editor.
it.
I'm the production. I'm the podcast guy. I'm packing every envelope. Every single shipment that goes out gets a handwritten note from me. Every single thing that I do, it's me. But I'm telling you, Ben, I am loving it. I am having so
Yeah.
much fun right now because I'm doing what I love, what I'm passionate about. Even the full-time job, I chose that job, and I was able to choose to go work for that company because I had this other passion project that I was working on that started to become a profitable little business right now, which is so cool. And I've got these consulting things that are popping up too. I've been asked to speak at different conferences, which is a lot of fun. I was the featured speaker at the National Association of Women's Gymnastics Symposium. That was such a blast. I had so much fun. So all of these things are happening right now, and yes, it's a lot, but I'm having a great time doing it.
Well, it's fun. I think we're very much aligned because, I find the feeling when you're getting ready to go on stage is the same feeling for me right before a game starts. Like
Mm,
there is this excitement. It's not really
yes,
nervous, it's not fear, but there's an excitement. Heart rate goes
yes,
up, breathing
yeah.
changes, and you're getting ready to, again, you're going out there. You don't know what chapters are going to be in this book, actually. um, and so good for you. So if folks want to follow you, look at your products, I know you're on TikTok. I'm not that much on Instagram, but I see you're in my feed like every day on TikTok, and I know that there's a website too. Is it refsneedlove2.com or what is
Yep.
it?
It's just refsneedlove2.com, TOO with the two O's there. And you can find me on that under that moniker on TikTok, on Instagram, YouTube, as well. I've got a podcast that people can listen to. And I've got the blog on the retail store as well, and merch, which is a lot of fun too. So yeah, it is all over the place right now, which is really, really cool. And it seems to keep on building every single day.
That's crazy. You're the kind of guy who wakes up, has an idea, and doesn't let anyone tell you no. You just go, let's just go start it, and we'll see where it goes. And I'm
Uh,
sure you sometimes probably drive your family crazy,
you know,
as
I
I
don't, I
do.
don't know. I have to tell you, like as a small business owner, it's really important that your spouse, and family is with you. Like I've had some ideas that are, admittedly maybe not the best ideas, or some products that haven't sold, but we talk about them, we think about them, we make decisions together. My wife's got a small business as well. She's a pet sitter, which is one it's actually grown into a really significant business over the last few years. So she's a hustler. She's got like 5 different jobs. She's a substitute teacher. She's a gymnastics judge. She was a cheer judge up until this past year. She does the pet sitting. She does like some acting, like extra stuff. She does a lot of stuff too. So she is definitely a hustler, and I say that in a good way. Is that we really care about the projects we're working on. We love what we do. We're having a lot of fun, and it enables us to have a good life. Enables us to make choices, to be able to go on vacations and spend quality time with our kids. We're able to be in good physical health and really take care of ourselves and eat good foods that are good for our bodies, And we tell each other that we love each other every chance we get. Life is
Yeah,
good.
this is exactly. I mean, Great Legal Marketing, which is my coaching consulting business,
Mm,
is all about like living a life by design. Like whatever is perfect for you,
yeah.
if you can articulate that for lawyers, like we can help you figure out how do I spend my next hour, my next dollar to move towards here, which is really it's revolutionary in the legal space where most lawyers are dissatisfied, unhappy,
Mhm.
and kind of hate the job that they've built for themselves.
Yeah. No, I'm a
Jim
big
Kirsten,
believer in the,
yeah.
the past is history, tomorrow is a mystery, you know, live in the present. It's a gift. That's why they call it the present. Just
Next
try
time
and
I
stay
come down to
focused on the now.
Georgia, next time I come down there, you're, I think, suburb of Atlanta.
That's
I
right.
think I've seen that. Yeah, I'll go reach out. Maybe there's some way we can get to get, either go do a lecture or a game together. Two little kids trying to just go out and have fun.
That would be
That'd be
fun. We can
fun.
go to Atlanta United game. I just warn you, I go in my full kit. So
There you go.
you'll see
You
me in
said
my yellow at that match. It's a
the
lot of fun.
crazy end of the stadium. All right, my friend, this has been wonderful. Thank you for carving out the time for us.
My pleasure.